There are certain artists within the sphere of rap that unironically have this unmistakable aura to them. Connoisseurs will commonly point to them as the leaders and influences that paved the way for generations to come. You can't find people that don't respect them. There's a few examples that instantly come to mind. Chief Keef, Young Thug, the list goes on. However, there's one artist, especially for this new generation, that stands out. But unlike Sosa or Thug, he never received the long-term fame that they did. Still, he's seen as this unshakable, undisputed legend within hip-hop, with the name that lingers in discourse today, even at times feeling more like something of a legend than real. Ladies and gentlemen, meet SahBabii. SahBabii is a veteran to the game at this point, clocking in over a decade of experience. With an eclectic list of musical influences, he developed a sound and aesthetic that earned him millions of streams and a platinum record. He's worked with the likes of Joji, 21 Savage, and Trippie Redd, but still stands on his own as an artist, not having to rely on cloud chasing or connections to keep him afloat. The SoundCloud era that he emerged from back in 2016 has lost many of its former stars to the wrath of time, but SahBabii continues to push forward, going at his own pace, as one should. But before we dive any deeper, we should take a moment and bring it back to where it all started. Sah was born and raised in Chicago, Illinois, with an older brother who goes by the name of Tthis. Tthis was an aspiring artist in the family, and eventually inspired Sah to take up music himself. Once the whole family moved to Atlanta in 2010, they began to embark on the journey together. They would record both at their uncle's house and in Tthis' room, the latter of which becoming Sah's #1 place to record. With his older brother producing for him and guiding his creative process, Sah would get to work. He started developing his first mixtape, that being Pimpin' Ain't Easy, a project that shows its influences on its sleeve. Heavily borrowing from the sounds and aesthetics of the 2000s, the cover feels a lot like a concept Gucci Mane would use for one of his infamous mixtapes, but a song like Fuckin' With My Pimping is reminiscent of radio hits from artists like Lil Wayne, Lloyd, and T-Pain, down to the autotune and lyrics. The next project Sah put his focus on was Glocks and Thoughts. Going back to his roots to take his next step creatively, the project sounds straight out of Chicago. The Chief Keef and Speaker Knocker's influence is undeniable, with hard-hitting production and repetitive lyrics that get stuck in your head. Despite being derivative, this early work from Sah showed he had potential to be something greater. He worked with his brother and mentor T3 constantly, getting more experience by the day. Eventually though, Sah began to slow down with his recording output, outright putting the mic down for an extended period of time. Outside of music, Sah was still a kid living like anyone else in Atlanta, running gaming channels on YouTube and hanging out with friends after school. Despite taking a couple years off, SahBabii made his way back to the microphone, the itch to make music calling his name yet again. The years between his last mixtape and his return to record proved to be crucial to the rap game, because in that time Atlanta went from just another city to one of the major players providing the hottest artists. Sah himself witnessed artists like Young Thug and Future take over the game, laying the foundations for their legacies. Reinvigorated and re-inspired, Sah got back into the lab with T3. With his family supporting him, he began preparing for another release. It was his third mixtape overall, but the first that felt uniquely SahBabii. It took the best qualities of his past work, refining them until his own artistry started to shine through. This would eventually become SANDS, and little did he know, this is what would kick off everything for the aspiring artist. Pull Up With A Stick was SahBabii's lead single to his SANDS project, featuring fellow local rapper Loso Loaded. After previewing the song and eventually dropping the music video on World Star Hip Hop, it caught fire and changed the game for the young artist. Sah went from taking 3-year breaks from music and working at Dick's Sporting Goods to being the newest viral sensation. What helped extend the song's virality was the amount of remixes made by established stars in the industry. Lil Wayne, Fetty Wap, T-Pain, Wiz Khalifa, and more artists all hopped on the wave to make their own versions. This included Young Thug, someone who had huge influence over Sah's sound. Sah was flown out to London by Thug and ran into Drake of all people, who said he himself was planning to make a remix of the song. SANDS as a whole did not disappoint when it reached the ears of new listeners beginning to discover SahBabii. It marked a shift in the style for the young artist, leading into more melodic vocals that flowed perfectly with the catchy trap production he was on. SANDS captured a feeling that was shared with the youth during that era, his music bringing a carefree and fun atmosphere that fit well with his peers. At the time, it felt like everything was on an upwards trajectory for Sah. He had just penned a deal for $2 million with Columbia Records to remaster his SANDS mixtape. His family created the production company called Casting Bait Music Group, with his father becoming his acting manager. Co-signs from big stars left and right, a hit under his belt and a promising future in the rap game, but with every peak also comes valleys. In 2017, the SoundCloud era was running wild, with many of its artists breaking out into the mainstream. The likes of Lil Uzi Vert, XXXTentacion, and yes, SahBabii were all making names for themselves with refreshing music and aesthetics. But like any other young wave bursting onto the scene, it was also met with backlash and criticism. Offset of the Migos called out rappers using upside-down cross imagery, throwing a blanket statement over the new generation.
All y'all went upside-down cross. Even my little partners, man. Stop that shit, boy. You look lame. All that worship the devil shit. Get with God, man.
As we all know, X did not take kindly to that, responding and kicking off a very memorable beef that got ugly at times.
Hey man, tell this Offset, get off man. You on that for man. Yo, man, always on somebody man. Shut your up, man.
But SahBabii didn't hold back either, refusing to let someone older talk so freely about him and his life choices.
Wearing pigtails, out. This shit all on the internet. I'll be glad to beat your ass, though.
It was wild then, and it still is wild now. Offset made threats and tried to discredit Sah's status in ATL. After the beef died down, Sah went on record to express disappointment in his own actions. Despite standing on his feelings about Offset talking down on his peers without provocation, he concluded that internet beef and arguing back and forth wouldn't solve anything. And with that, he got back to work, putting his head down and focusing on the music. Off the heels of his breakout project, Sah got to work on what would be his next mixtape. Sah's 2018 was focused on proving he was here to stay, and that he wasn't just a one-hit wonder meant to fizzle out like rappers in the past who blew up overnight, adding hype to the fans' expectations. Collaborating with the likes of 21 Savage and surprisingly R. Kelly, Sah kept people guessing as the release date crept closer. Squidrific released on August 29, 2018. It was another mixtape unique to Sah's lane that he'd been carving out for himself. Taking the dreamy landscapes and angelic vocals to another level, it silenced any doubters who were preying on his downfall. Sah might not have been topping charts once the dust of his first hit settled, but he was still putting in work and improving, taking what made him special in the first place and perfecting it. 2018 was stacked with hip-hop releases, but as good as this album is, it being slept on really is a crime. Sah rode the hype of his new drop for the rest of the year, before surprising everyone with an extended play titled 3P in February, delivering another handful of songs to feed the fans. The rest of 2019 was quiet on Sah's part, aside from him considering and announcing retirement. But luckily, the story wasn't over, and Sah still had a lot to offer people who had fallen in love with his bold, unfiltered lyrics and ethereal production. SahBabii returned in 2020 with back-to-back songs Double Dick and Tongue Demon, leaning into the outrageous lyrical content that his fans know and love him for. As he was teasing more music, Sah began to open up about his struggles adjusting to the industry throughout the year. He allowed the fans to see another side of him as he geared up for a new big release, shedding light on personal matters such as his short-lived retirement, mental health, and medication. July 8th saw the release of Barnacles, SahBabii's first full-length project since 2018. It was a return to form after a mostly uneventful 2019, reminding everyone why SahBabii had made it so far into the game without losing what set him apart. The wavy vocals, the dreamy beats, and out-of-pocket lyrics that get stuck in your head no matter what. His ability to stay true to himself is what makes him an outlier compared to many of his peers, many of whom unfortunately could not keep up. In 2021, Sah took another step in his evolution. The death of his longtime friend from childhood pushed him to do something different with his next release. Do It for Demon is an album dedicated to someone Sah sees as a cousin and as a brother. Demon Child Pookie was seen in multiple music videos, only giving us a peek into what their bond was like. Following his death, Sah honored his friend's wishes, using the album to get more serious subject matter off his chest. Diving into topics such as pain, trauma, depression, anxiety, and paranoia, Sah gave us another dimension to his character and art that we had not seen much of before. Fast forward to the present day, and Sah is still going on strong, despite so many critics having claimed he'd be forgotten by now. He steps away from the limelight whenever he wants and stays as long as possible, at least until it's time to drop more music. In response to getting his vault leaked along with several other Atlanta-based rappers, Sah announced the Leak Out, a compilation of leaks that the fans could enjoy while Sah continued work on his next album. After the leak out, Sah took back the spotlight in 2023, just in time for a summer hit. Previewing Lost All My Feelings on socials, the hook and the hilarious sound effects Sah sings on it made it infectious, getting huge traction on TikTok especially. It just goes to show that organic artistry is what rules over all. SahBabii might not be a mainstream superstar, but he's made a name for himself and carved out a path that allowed him to make his dream a reality. He's built a loyal cult following and can focus solely on music after years of grinding in the home studio with T3. He can disappear whenever he wants, for however long he wants, and he doesn't have to keep a camera in his face documenting his every move in order to keep relevance. I wanted to really show that SahBabii is one of the most underrated artists to come out of the SoundCloud era. His music can range from surreal and absurd to lighthearted and angelic, to heavy-hitting and personal. But at the end of the day, the position he's in now feels perfect for the type of artist he is, someone who's not about the gimmicks or clout, but instead about the creative vision and process.